Ed Lyon. Ed, what's going on? And I know you have another very amazing guest for us today.
I'm looking forward to the conversation. Great to see you, Neil. Janine, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
We're recording this towards the end of November, and that means for those of us in the tax planning business, it's busy season. People hear tax and they think tax preparation, they think busy until April 15th, and then you're off for the rest of the year. It's not the case. I'm not busy around April 15th because I'm not doing taxes. What I'm doing this time of year is I am meeting with people who suddenly realize they're going to owe the IRS more money than they expected or more money than they wanted. And they come to people like Janine and me because they want strategies for paying less. So we know I'm an attorney by training. I consider myself a tax planner. Janine is a financial advisor and wealth manager, but she deals with taxes really nearly as much as I do because every investment move that she and her clients make has a tax consequence. And Janine's on the show today because we had a conversation yesterday about a mutual client, and Janine was talking about not just the tactical moves that clients make with their money, but the mental choices that they make and the tax puzzle. So, Janine, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, we will dive on in. We'll start by talking about some of the tax challenges we face. But what I really want to dig into today is how people make decisions about money, including how people make decisions about taxes.
Well, great question because it's a question that, you know, includes so many things out there.
Right.
So just a little bit about my background. Right out of college, I was commissioned as a naval intelligence officer. So that makes me a recovering analytic. So I
Okay.
spent about 22 years, 8 years active, the rest reserve, raised 4 kids, stepped back into full time, and walked into an absolute bleak show of a project. And because a friend of mine said, "Hey, we need leadership here." Very stressful, but boy, did I learn a lot. And then said, I'm done with corporate America.
Hmm.
And one of my brothers, who's been in the financial services advisory business for a long time, 40 years almost, now said, "You need to come into this business because you care about people and there aren't enough people doing it right." And so voila, I've been here for 21 years. And the what I love about this is it's not just, or at least what I do, it's not just about the investments
No,
or
it,
money.
it
It's
can't
the
be.
right, it's the decisions around the money that are just as important as the money.
Hmm.
And everybody's situation is unique. I mean, yes, you can see some, cookie cutter problems, but how people address those problems, the mindsets they bring to the problems, the
Hmm.
expectations, to me is what's very interesting. Because I love dealing with people, which makes it a little easier because everybody has an issue. So,
Right,
but,
right. Even rich people have problems. They just have rich people problems.
yeah.
Maybe they're easier problems to deal with, but uh, so few people are truly comfortable with money and comfortable with their relationship with it. We all have, I've said this before, we all have relationships in our lives. We have parents, we have siblings, we have friends, we have spouses and lovers, we have work colleagues. And everybody's got a different set of relations, but we all have a relationship with money. And for most of it, most of us, it's a dysfunctional relationship, right? Neil, you've interviewed guests across the spectrum,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes you'll touch on money, I imagine, sometimes not. But, uh, you know, you it would surprise you how many rich people are whiny messes about money.
No. And yes, and there are. And it just depends who they are. And I
Right.
did this when I used to tutor in houses when I had a tutoring business. And I'd tutor in different socioeconomic places when I go to the houses, and you would see how some of them deal with money versus others.
Right.
And you're like, you're investing in your child and you're being cheap about this and how important tutoring is. So you'd see a gamut out there for sure.
Right. You'd have some people who are investing in their children doing it right. You'd have other people investing in sports cars or investing in a cocaine habit or whatever unfortunate, unhealthy vice they may have. But Janine, this is what really intrigues me. about this conversation with you. So you said at the beginning of your introduction, you see a lot of people doing it wrong, and let's dig into that a little deeper. What are they doing that makes it wrong? Is it a focus? Is it an integrity issue? Uh, Go into a little more depth on that for me.
Well, that's a tough one because it does run the gamut, as you guys have mentioned. And for a lot of people, and this is something I ask a lot of people, what is your
Hmm.
purpose for the money?
Right.
What if you could pick one word to define that purpose, what is it? And you will get a lot of different, because people don't know how to do that.
Right.
You know,
Most
and
of them, I imagine most of them tell you they've never thought of it or nobody's ever asked them that question.
right. And so when you're talking, like you've seen in homes, how people deal with their kids, one of the things I've been trying to explain to people is you are the first teacher
Hmm.
of
Yes.
your children, even if they're adults, because they still come to you unless you absolutely can't stand each other. And
Right.
you must talk about money
Yeah.
And
because what is it?
there's no other place to get that education
There's
either.
exactly right.
You know,
And
in Ohio, where my kids graduated from high school, they do now have a required semester class in financial literacy. But both two of my kids who took it said the teacher just passes out some Dave Ramsey stuff,
well,
which
yeah,
what a shame that is.
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
What talk about a missed opportunity?
Yeah.
Um, because one of the things I'm talking to parents about, and and even younger people, what is, does the money define you? Is it what you buy that defines you?
Hmm.
Or is it what you can do? Because a lot of people do have mindset issues with money because, money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money.
Right. The love of money is the
Right.
root.
And money, having more money just allows you to have more choices
Hmm.
and
Right.
opportunities to help if that's your goal is to help people.
Yeah.
Instead of just having another Lamborghini. I was talking to a young advisor a couple of
I don't
years
even have one Lamborghini.
back.
What,
You
am
can
I a
have
loser?
it. You can have it. I mean, there's a young advisor a couple of years ago I was talking with, and that was his big thing to have a Lamborghini. And I'm like, dude, how about marrying the mother of your two kids? I don't want to go there, but just
Okay.
just let's get some priorities that are real on the
Uh-huh.
table here.
Right.
Sure.
Um,
Is that a difficult conversation for most people?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I mean, my parents were tough love. And I think I've told Ed, we came from no money, and a lot of people in my generation came from no money. You started working at 14 or 15, and
Mhm.
you knew you could not rely on mom and dad to solve your lifestyle problems. So you better go work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you learn a lot in the process, even if you have the crappy job. There's a lot to be learned. And I think culturally, a lot of people have forgotten that that would be an important thing for their kids to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they've all done a bad job in that. And I feel that if you would have told me more money meant to be able to have more opportunity, I don't think that's taught enough. And
No.
especially when they think that you don't have a chance to get to this level of person because it's not possible for you. And you hear that a lot, the naysayers. And they don't understand that money, making more money, maybe working a little bit longer at times, is going to provide a lot more options and a
Yeah.
lot more time to be you than
A lot
Right.
more options and yes, a lot more time. So the one thing that none of us are going to get more of at some point is time. And
Right.
time, I think, for whether you want to spend that time with friends, whether you want to spend it with your children, whether you want to spend it working with a charitable organization and other people, time is a finite resource for all of us. And I've made a choice years ago in some cases that I was going to use money to buy time. When I was living in my house in the suburbs, for example, I never wanted to cut the grass. And I could spend a couple of hours with a client and make enough money to pay for an entire season of lawn care. So
Right.
I was in the end working a couple hours more, but it was to save myself even more time. And I don't think enough people look at the trade-off between time and money. Somebody who drives 20 minutes extra to save a couple bucks on something is
Yeah.
probably really undervaluing their time.
Well, and Ed, to that point, it's really interesting that you should say that, because yes, when you figure that out, that you can trade, time for money, etc. There's something else that's been lost in our culture in many aspects. It's that doing the menial job actually has meaning, and it can propel you, or it can help you understand the people you hire, and and building a business. Like
Mhm.
if you were going to go buy, and I was talking to a young guy not too long ago, he goes, if I had to do this over again, I'd buy an HVAC company. And I'm like, do you know anything about HVAC?
All right.
You know,
There'd be a learning curve. Yeah, and that brings up another point, because this young advisor, maybe he has some clients who own HVAC companies, or he's seen the way private equity is hoovering up HVAC companies when they get the you saw what I did there. Yeah.
yeah.
The way private equity is hoovering up HVAC companies, you look at somebody and you think, gosh, I wish I was there.
Yeah.
And you don't see what the person went through to get there. It's the old saying, don't tell me about the pregnancy, just show me the baby. Because nobody wants to hear how you got there. Nobody wants to hear the sacrifices. And that's gotten worse in recent years, because if you pick up this thing that we're all addicted to and you scroll through Instagram, you've got people who are creating these really elaborate facades. I assume now that when I see somebody in a Maserati or a Lamborghini on Instagram, that the car is rented for a day. It's not actually that influencer's car. And when I see a young woman sitting in the seat of a private jet, no, I don't assume that she's there with an older man. I assume that she's entrepreneurial, but she's probably positioning herself, and maybe she's riding on somebody else's jet, or she's rented the jet for a photo shoot. In
Right.
fact, I've heard, and I'm trying to dig back through my memory. There's some place, I think it's in either Los Angeles or Miami, where you can rent the interior of a jet for photo shoots, so that you can show off how fancy you are. And people are making it a sport and making it a business to show off more money than they have.
Well, and what does that do to the younger generation? Where's
Right.
the
It
emphasis?
Yeah, it warps their values. So
Yeah.
when you were growing up with your siblings and didn't have money and went to work at 15, you learned that the way to solve your problem is to go to work, not scroll Instagram and think, I'm going to grow up to be an influencer, or I'm going to grow up to be a lottery winner. Uh,
Right.
that you understand that maybe the slower but the more secure way to get to financial success is through work and through planning and through diligence.
Well, and the other part is perseverance, because what's the story of, and I apologize, can't think of his name, but the guy who Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Colonel
He,
Sanders,
Well, yeah, Colonel Sanders, but
Harlan Sanders.
yes, thanks. I mean, how long did it take him to get that moving? And he was 66 at the time.
Right.
And I was having another conversation earlier that I go, you can't, in fact, with a young guy who's kind of he's a friend of my daughter's, and he's like, oh my gosh, what do you think? And I go, well, you're right now things are really tight, but let me tell you, America's the land of second, third, fourth, and fifth chances,
Sure.
because you can start over. You can move in the right direction. It's going to take some work. It's going to take perseverance, and you're going to have to be headstrong about it. As
Mhm.
opposed to, I had someone tell me years ago, who was from France, and she said, if you don't pass your baccalaureate, there's no second chance you don't go to college.
Right.
Ah,
Wow.
okay.
And so your choices are limited.
That makes sense, considering how we celebrate the French for their entrepreneurial business spirit.
So, which I thought was interesting, because I thought, oh my gosh, this is America. You can do anything.
Right. The
Right.
Figure it
tracking in
out.
education, where in other countries they're tracking you and they decide what your job's going to be
Yeah.
Yeah.
based on be early in life they
Mhm.
choose, versus you can come up from the broke and then 5 years later be a multi millionaire or billionaire. So there's an opportunity for
There's
everybody.
right. And if it takes long, you can keep trying. So if you don't pass your baccalaureate in France, they're going to put you on the whatever track for people
Right.
who didn't get into college. But if you're an entrepreneur in America, and if you don't succeed in your 20s, you can keep trying in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. Colonel Sanders at 66. And a lot of people in their 20s might say, well, that's no way to live, working and not get rich until you're 66. Well, I'm 61, and I can tell you I would really, I don't care what's in the rear view mirror. If I knew I was going to have Colonel Sanders success at 66, I would say I'm going to take good care of myself so I can enjoy it for as many years as possible afterwards.
Well, and yeah, and that's, you know, getting people to, because some of the younger people will say, and by younger, I mean millennials, you know, I
Hmm.
want to retire by 45 or I want to retire by 50. And then, and even everybody who says that, my next question is, and then what?
Right. And then what are you going to do?
And what are you going to do? Because you may live 30, 40 years. And I mean, I had a
or
client.
more.
Hmm.
Exactly. You know, I had two brothers. The dad passed away. They didn't know he had a lot of money, you know, because family was dysfunctional, and they inherited this money. Well, there's 10 years difference between the two kids. So,
Mm.
well, kids, the one is in his 40s, and you know, I meet with him, and then I go meet with the younger brother, and I go back to the older brother, and I go, "What happened in your family between you and him?"
Uh-huh.
And turns out married, normal, stable family for the older one. Then divorce happens when the younger one's 8, and
Mm.
mom starts drinking and doing drugs.
Okay.
Mm.
So younger one, he's 32, 33, sitting in front of it, you know, a game. He's gaming and, you know, spending it a little bit and living with mom. And I'm like, dude, you're 32. You're going to do this for the next 50 years?
Right. It's time to move out.
Yeah. So there is that. Nobody's told them it's time to adult.
Hmm. Well,
And
no, and they don't want to adult, and we're the role models if they don't see us adulting. So your
right.
32-year-old client clearly never saw adulting or didn't see enough of dad adulting to create that money
Well, and so
to
yeah,
do
and
anything.
like what you've seen with, you know, what very wealthy is you're role modeling dysfunctional behavior for
Hmm.
your kids.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it just perpetuates itself unless somebody steps in and says, okay, that's not how this works.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you know, and it's the tough love thing. So I mean, I have a lot of clients that say, oh, we love the fact that you're a tough love advisor because I
No,
just
that makes a whole lot of sense. They need to hear some things sometimes that they don't want to hear. I've
yeah.
had an interesting experience with that. I've worked with a lot of CPAs and enrolled agents, tax professionals over the last 20 years. And part of what I do with them is sales training. A lot of them have a visceral dislike of selling. They think that selling is a bad thing. And when you're 8 years old, if dad comes home with a new car and says, boy, the salesman was so pushy, you're going to internalize that.
Right.
And 30 years later, you open up a CPA practice and it's time to go out and start getting clients. If you own a small business, you are a salesperson by default. You must be. One of my favorite business gurus, Scott Galloway, says there are three requirements for being an entrepreneur, and one of them is you love selling. But if you've heard from a young age, oh, salespeople are pushy, and don't tell the used car salesman what your budget is, and play these games, and you internalize that the process of selling is somehow tainted or bad or evil, it's gonna kneecap your ability to grow a business when you're older.
Right. Yeah. It's really tough. My dad was a small business owner after he left the Air Force, and great. He called himself an artiste, and we used to laugh. And I'm like, Dad, okay, there's business. And he goes, you don't understand my business. I go, Dad, business is business.
Mhm.
It's numbers. It's, you know, it's clients. It's you got to get out there. And he would do that, but he was always better at being a technologist at what he did than being
Well, and
active business.
right, and so I would respectfully push back a little bit on numbers being just a story, but there are this is the classic E-myth that Michael Gerber talks about in the series of E-myth books. A lot of business owners are really technicians who just wound up owning a professional practice or owning a business, whereas the entrepreneur is solving a problem and telling a story. So for me, business does not come down to numbers. For me, business comes down to the story that you tell. And the story you tell defines the brand, it defines your value proposition. It's what you're worth for your customers or your clients. So
Right.
I've spent 20 years creating a story for myself, and it comes down to a few simple analogies. And Neil, you've heard most of these already in some of these Lion Share podcasts, but the fundamental story that I tell is that tax preparers tell you how much you owe. Tax planners tell you how to pay less. That's a pretty obvious difference, and it seems intuitive when you hear it, but it's the process. It's the end of a process of testing and measuring and seeing which story works best. And so the numbers are important. Once you get money coming in the door, once you're starting to spend money, absolutely, you need somebody who can manage those numbers. But the business that grows fastest and builds the strongest foundation is going to be the business that has the most powerful story.
Yeah. I don't think that back in the day, well, not that long ago, really, that was kind of the emphasis, or nobody had that brainchild to go, hey, go tell your story
Mm-hmm.
versus, just let me go get clients. And he was a dental technologist, so he was working with dentists all the time.
Okay.
And what he would say, which would have been great as an ad, I tried to get him to do ads. He said he could tell by an impression whether the dentist was a butcher or not.
Really?
And I thought, oh my gosh, that'd be a great ad.
That would be a
Do you
great
know what's
ad.
going in your mouth?
Uh-huh.
But he was too, nervous to do that.
Uh-huh.
But that's where we are today.
Well, and that's another thing that goes into business, frankly, is confidence.
Right.
Confidence is crucial. And working with CPAs, I've seen some CPAs who are entrepreneurial and have confidence, and they succeed. And CPAs who don't have confidence don't succeed. They may be very good technicians.
Right.
They may be able to fill out a tax return efficiently. They put the right numbers in the right boxes on the right forms. They may be great at that. But if they don't have confidence in telling the story that they can do it, they're not going to have as many clients as they should to do that. So a lot of stuff, just as with what you're doing with investments, you have some clients who are open to risk. You have some clients who are avoiding risk. As I say, some people buy Bitcoin, some people buy whole life insurance. And it's not that one of them is right and one of them is wrong. It's just finding the right fit. So if you have someone who's temperamentally suited for whole life insurance, where they're not going to lose any money and they're going to get steady growth, and you put them in something too aggressive, they're going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be an effective relationship for you, and it's certainly not going to be an effective service for them.
Yeah, exactly. I do have that conversation a lot with people, because I will tell them there are not necessarily any right or wrong answers.
No.
And you are where you are. There are some better strategies or better options. And do you actually understand what you have and how
Right.
it works now?
Better fits. And
Yeah.
people wouldn't think that that's part of taxes, but it really is. So when I sit down with a client, I'm going to have some very plain vanilla strategies that the IRS isn't going to look twice at. I'm going to have some more complex, more clever strategies. I can show the client why they are legal under the Internal Revenue Code. And then I have other strategies that the IRS may be scrutinizing because there have been abuses in that particular area. So if I'm going to present those three strategies to a client, I'm going to walk them through the risks, the benefits, what are the consequences if the IRS audits you, and they're going to make the decision as to what is the right risk tolerance for them. Too many people think that taxes are just black and white,
Right.
and that I can sit down and manipulate some numbers. That's not it at all. I'm manipulating behavior as much as anything else. I remember reading years ago a book by a financial advisor. I don't remember her name right now, but it was called Advice That Sticks. And it was about being an advisor and giving people advice that they will actually follow. People think that financial services is about sales. Oh, you're selling a portfolio, you're selling an insurance policy, you're selling an annuity. If that's what you're doing it wrong. Financial services is about coaching clients, helping them understand their money psychology, helping them behave in ways that get them to their goals consistent with their risk tolerance. It's not a product sales role
But-
at
and
all if you're doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, and I think unfortunately the industry, when they're bringing in new potential advisors, doesn't really talk about that. And that's why
Mhm.
there's such a high failure rate, because they expect you to do this over here and just sell, sell, sell before you even understand what anything is.
Right.
Uh, I had a doctor client years ago when she came to work with me. She basically said, "I'm a damn good doctor, but I don't know about this." And I said,
Mhm.
"Okay." And she goes, "That's why I'm hiring you." And I said, "Well, here's the deal. I will expect you to at least understand conceptually what we're doing
Mhm.
because it's important."
Right, it's important, and somebody who is a doctor, they're a scientist. They've got a scientific background, they are probably due diligence oriented. My doctor clients don't want me to bring them a black box and say, "Here's the plan, you don't need to know what's inside it, just do this, this, and this."
Right.
They like to open up the box, they like to see what's inside, they wanna test, they wanna measure, they wanna understand why I'm recommending something, they wanna understand how it works. And they want to understand why I think it is a good fit for them.
Right.
And again, it all comes down to the psychology. People think, oh, financial services, you're selling high commission insurance products to people who don't need them. No, that's not what you're doing. Or you're managing investment portfolios for people and they don't need to know what's happening under the hood as the investments go up and down. For me, is Ed just bringing a bunch of tax motivated products? Is Ed bringing just a bunch of different business strategies? No, I'm sitting down and interviewing the clients. I'm getting a sense of what they want to be when they grow up. And then I don't just help them save tax, I help them accomplish those financial goals with a minimum of interference from tax. But it all comes down to the psychology. And if I have a 20-year-old son in college, if he wanted to go into financial services, and if he asked me, should I be studying economics or should I be studying psychology? I would recommend he go into the psychology before he go into the economics. Lots of successful financial advisors have never taken an economics class in their life.
Right. I mean, it really is about understanding the person you're talking with.
Yeah. So in your first semester economics class in college, on the first day, the professor introduces you to a fellow named Homo economicus, rational man. And he says, we're going to study economics because rational man is going to weigh the costs and the benefits, and he's going to see where the supply curve interacts with the demand curve, and he's going to make all of these rational decisions to maximize his opportunity. And if you're really thinking about it when you're a kid sitting in class, you really are, okay, I'm going to drop this class because that's not how the real world works.
Yeah.
And go to the professor in office hours and say, wait a minute, I've seen my dad make financial decisions and he's a hot mess. And I've seen my mom nag him about the results of those financial decisions and she's a different hot mess. And you're saying people make decisions rationally? And the professor's going to say, no, but in order to teach these concepts, we assume that they act rationally. That's just nonsense. It's just not how people think.
Yeah.
First of all, for starters, and Janine, you're probably just as familiar with this as anybody. Forget about rational man; it should be rational woman, because studies show that women are better investors over time. They don't get their ego tied up in it, and they invest less emotionally. So they are more likely to make rational financial decisions than men.
Yeah, for the most part, I think that's true because they're less aggressive or they're less interested in being aggressive
Hmm.
without a reason. But it's funny you brought that up just because one of the reasons I came into the business was I was looking for a holistic advisor. And I mean, at the time we were working with a broker, and I remember sitting in his office, nice guy, I coached his kids, nice guy, and he's talking to my husband the entire time.
Ah, okay,
And then he's talking about economics up here in the market. And I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with me?
right.
And and okay, I know I'm pretty smart, but you're mentioning all this economics
Hmm.
and the market stuff. And what does that have to do? How does it affect us?
Right.
what are you recommending? There was no recommendation. And so, I sit on that for a couple of years and I'm like, then talking to my brother and I said, I'm going to go be what I couldn't find,
Okay.
which is a holistic advisor that deals with people in where they are, from where they
Hmm.
are.
Right.
And then you're trying to help them get to where they want to go. But I have to say, I really don't like this. Oh, let me help you achieve your dreams and goals. Because honestly, most people have no clue where they
Right.
want to go.
Yeah.
And they don't know what retirement is because they've never been there.
Yeah.
Right.
So what are the things you like? What would you be willing to get involved in? What, activities are going to
Yeah.
keep you lively,
Hmm. Right. What's going to keep
alive?
you going? Because everybody knows the most dangerous year in a man's life is the year he retires.
Yep. That was my dad.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting, because it's what they love, and then at one point they can't keep doing it. Maybe
Right.
depends on what you're doing.
It
Right.
depends on what you're doing and how happy you are with it. I know people who work in a corporate office and they go up the cubicle chain. They start in the cubicle with the fabric walls, and then they get a promotion, and now they're in a cubicle with the plywood walls. And then finally they're in the cubicle that's actually surrounded by glass. And they're corporate drones. They can't wait to retire at age
Yeah.
55 because working for the man is a grind.
Right.
Versus the clients I work with who own their own business, the entrepreneurs, for them, they may not be an artiste, but business is where they're expressing their creativity. They love what they do. They don't want to stop doing it. Maybe they'll do less of it. Maybe they'll work 3 days a week instead of five. Maybe they'll work 2 weeks out of the month instead of four, and they'll spend a month on holiday skiing in Colorado or at the beach in the Caribbean somewhere. But they like what they do, so they're in no hurry to
Yeah.
retire. And for most of them, retirement is working because they want to, not because they have to. They may make
Right.
less income, um, but they're not just looking for a complete exit. But so few people have really thought about what their financial future looks like. They're so stuck in the grind of just staying in place, putting aside a few bucks for that future
Exactly.
retirement. Yeah, yeah.
And then that's the biggest thing is, what does a retirement look like? So as an advisor, and I spoke to somebody else that wrote a book, that he's an advisor, and he talked about retirement then dying. And the thing is that your job is not, as a holistic planner, is not to plan the retirement, but also to see, do they have a plan? Do they
Right.
even know what they're going to do? They think, oh, I'm going to spend time with the grandkids and that's it. Is that really what you're going to want to do? Are you really going to want to go and be at home all day, every day? Is that going
Right.
to
If you
satisfy you?
if you've been a corporate lawyer or an investment banker, master of the universe, or you built a manufacturing company up to 200 employees, are you really going to be happy being a babysitter for your grandchildren? That's the kind of thing that sounds great in theory, but after a month, a lot of these retire. They're pulling their hair out, and they got to find something to do. They lose status, which is really important. That's a something that
Yep.
we can't overlook. One reason people work is to climb the chain and to compete and to show that they can do that. And if you're used to having an admin get your coffee in the morning and an assistant pick up your dry cleaning and all that kind of stuff, are you really going to throw it away? Move to the villages in Florida. Sorry if I'm going to offend anybody watching. Move to the villages and play pickleball and golf all day, watch Fox News all night, and wait for the doctor to call with a bad biopsy? Can you really go from master of the universe to uh, schlepping your grandchildren around in a golf cart all day?
Yeah.
That's a hard transition. If that's what you want, great.
That's fine.
And you can make it, if you can make it work, great. But I think that while people think that retirement is going to be easy, it's harder than a lot of people think, and you still have a lot of the 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 day-to-day financial questions. So I do a lot of tax planning for retirees. If somebody is pulling 100 or $200,000 a year in required minimum distributions from their 401k, and they've got some rental real estate income, and they've got Social Security, and maybe one spouse has a small pension from a job that they had back when pensions were a thing. You're retired, you've got 3 or $400,000 a year. might be more than you need to live on. You're certainly paying more tax than you want to. So you've got that challenge, managing the assets to make sure that you live as long, that your money lives as long as you do, and not giving half of it to the IRS. And are people prepared for that challenge? A
Mhm.
lot of them are not. A lot
No.
of them are not. And
Well, they don't know even, I mean, very, very smart people, because it's not their bailiwick.
right,
They don't know what they don't know.
right,
And so the only questions they're asking, if they have a CPA, I mean, I have a handful of clients that are doing it themselves with Turbo, and I'm like, you might want to get a second opinion on that.
right.
Especially tax plan.
TurboTax is a powerful tool, but it's
Yeah,
only as good as the user.
right,
And TurboTax helps you prepare your tax return, but it doesn't help you make strategic tax planning decisions.
right.
Right.
And those are really more important than finding an extra $40 in charitable deductions by combing through your bank account.
Yeah.
Now, understanding how you can convert your IRA to a Roth IRA is going to save you a lot more money than any amount of futzing around with the numbers on TurboTax is going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the challenges of working with, I mean, a lot of my clients, I'm blessed. I love my clients. They're great people. There are a lot of millionaires next door.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
and they've spent their lives working and
Hmm.
earning. And now they're at a point where they're looking at what these RMDs are going to be and going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this money?
Right.
And my taxes didn't go down. I'm like, yeah, I told you some
Right.
time
Right.
ago.
Yeah,
But
there's this conventional wisdom in America. Stuff as much money into your 401k as you possibly can.
right,
Enjoy the tax deduction now, and we'll deal with the taxes down the road. When you're in a lower tax bracket, you're making less money, you're in a lower tax bracket, so you'll pay less. Well, you get to retirement, and for a lot of my clients, their RMDs alone, their required minimum distributions, are putting them right back at the same income they were when they were working. They're paying the same tax bill. They're really not saving anything. The 401k razzle dazzle didn't save them anything because they're
that's
paying the same tax rate. They're just paying it on a larger distribution
Right.
than when the money went in. And that's an everyday challenge. I have some variation of this conversation with a client or an advisor nearly every day. The
well,
conventional is wisdom for a lot of people just is wrong.
and they don't, I mean, I try to use a lot of humor, as you can probably tell. I do ask people, I go, how much do you still like your kids? Do they like you?
Uh-huh.
Because if you're planning to leave, and I have had clients say, well, I paid for tuition, and that if they'll get whatever they get. And I said, and I'm thinking things are going to change really fast when grandkids come along. So
Yeah.
let's just plan for that.
Mhm.
But they haven't really thought out the fact that they're going to have these very large RMDs.
Mhm.
Even if started taking distributions prior to that, they've got good size accounts.
Right.
So it's like, okay, how much do you want to leave the Uncle Sam guy?
Yeah. Yeah. And the RMDs grow every year. The
Mhm.
account grows faster than they're taking the money out, and the percentage that they have to take out every year in the form of RMDs gets bigger. So
Right.
somebody who's looking at a $400,000 RMD in their first year of retirement could be looking at 800,000 or a million down the road. And yeah, how much do you like your kids? There's a wonderful line. I think it was Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner, and somebody said, "Should you leave all your money to your kids? Will it spoil them?" And Munger said, "Yes, it will spoil them, but you have to do it, otherwise they'll hate you."
So,
Caught between a rock and a hard place. Do I want to spoil my kids? My answer, of course, is going to be to live long enough that my kids will be retired before I die. So they'll hopefully have built up some good habits.
yeah, that's a big key.
I won't be leaving them millions in their 20s where they can blow it.
Right, right. Yeah, it is a challenge, and again, it's a very individual thing. And when you're working with couples, that's very entertaining sometimes, especially with Zoom. You've
Mhm.
got when they show up on Zoom. I've got one on this side of the camera
Right.
thing, and the screen, and the other one on this side. I'm like, okay, what are you guys arguing about now?
Uh-huh.
So,
Right.
so let's get back on the same page, and so we can move forward. But I mean,
And,
it's.
And it all comes down to the psychology. And so this has been a great episode of the Lion's Share podcast. We haven't talked taxes, really. We haven't talked about a specific tax strategy. You haven't learned a hack on how you can do a Roth IRA conversion at a lower tax rate. It's all about the mindset, and a, a, a solid, informed, thoughtful mindset is going to be far more valuable to my clients and Janine, your clients, than any collection of tax hacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Great conversation. I'm going to want to have you back to continue the conversation. And Neil, thanks as always for hosting and producing.
Yeah, it was a fun conversation, but it's really an interesting one. I can imagine those conversations with couples about, we haven't saved any money. This is what we're getting when they're used to living a lifestyle like that. That's why you need to have a great financial planner, get things going, ask questions, and find the right person.
Yep.
So yeah.
Janine, why don't you tell us where people can find you?
At Theus, like the US, wealthadvisors.com.
The uswealthadvisors.com. There's a little poetry to that. I like that.
A little play on the name.
Yep.
All right. Appreciate it. And definitely follow Ed Lyon on all of social media, and like and subscribe to the podcast. Follow it and write an Apple podcast review, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's how people are going to find out. And Ed has always some good Easter eggs in every episode. You just have to listen carefully. He throws them out all the time. I'm watching too much Stranger Things, but I appreciate it, guys. Thanks again.